Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Wheel of Time Season 3, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, first and foremost, let's start off with all the stuff in the tower. So, we have Elena, I'm sure I'm saying the name wrong every time, but Shorty Dr. Lou's character. First and foremost, her having like that tremor in her hands. I was like, I'm wondering what's that about. I wonder, is that something that's only recent, or is that something like that's always been there? They probably have talked about that, but like an Aes Sedai, like of like kind of maybe reaching the end or something. Like I don't know if that's what that's indicating, or if that's something else entirely. But she is in the tower doing her machination. She wants to have a private meeting with Suan, but Varen and Leanna are like, no, basically you need to have a sitter to come basically co-sign you having a sit down with her one-on-one in a private chamber. So it's like, yeah, they don't trust her one bit. So what does she do? She tries to smooth and get close to the Reds. It makes sense. You used to be one of the Reds. In fact, you were kind of the sitter for the Reds for a while, but for them it's like, you kind of abandoned us for what you're doing. You kind of felt like you were too good for us. She even tried to give like the current sitter like this like necklace or whatever, but she's like, no, you keep it. It's not for my taste. It's too gaudy for me, but it's perfect for you. I was like, all the not even the subtle shade, all the direct like blatant shade thrown her way. But basically her perspective is she wants to get the Red Aja back to where they were. They were the ones that were kind of mainly in control of the tower, and even talking about like how the current sitter, it's her fault that the Red Aja don't really have a seat at the table when it comes to like the meeting room, which I guess I didn't even notice that last in episode 1 that there weren't really any Red Aja amongst them. I guess, I mean, they were all kind of on the outskirts when they were Suan and the others. Well, more so Suan was talking to Leandrin, but so yeah. And at first I was like, is that what you're really here to do? But it seems like at least the sitter wasn't listening too much. One of the other Reds was listening. She's the one that accepted Elena's gift. So I'm like, yeah, okay. Because it turns out Elena's like, our goal to kind of run things is we need to go back to what we do best. And that is basically caging men that can channel. So the Dragon Reborn, we need to find Rand wherever he is and drag him back here in the cage. So you're like, oh, that's interesting. Once again, it's like, he might not be the false dragon, he might be the real dragon, but he's still a man that can channel, and that's too dangerous. Even more so if he's the actual dragon. False dragons were already issues enough. They've lost so many to the false dragons, but him being a real dragon, so it's all of that. But then you're like, oh, is that really your play here? But it's like, you seem like you I mean, once again, you do seem like you have some supporters amongst the Red Aja. So what does she do? She spins a tale when she finds out, like, she realizes who Min is. It's like, she's like, I was told years ago, the best advice is whoever comes into your room, find out who they are and why they are. So it's like, right, I know Varen and Leanna are telling you to spy on me. So, and it's perfectly fine. And she drops the hint about, because she turns out that she's a seer. Her ability isn't quite the same as Min's, because she's like, yeah, I have my foretellings, but they don't come about as often as your visions do. So she ends up kind of spinning this story about like the Red Aja trying to kind of usurp some stuff in the in the tower, but it's like she's the one that planted that seed. So I was like, did you ever intentionally go to them with the intention of, oh, I'm going to, like, we're legitimately going to, like, was that her actual goal with the Red Aja, like when she brought it up to them, or was that just some BS she spun just to later on play them when it comes to Suan or not? That's why I'm unclear of like whether this was always the goal, or whether did you change your mind after your sisters like didn't like side with you fully. I'm curious. I'm not quite sure. Maybe that's clearer to other people. I'm not sure which lane of things that is. So, which causes problems later on, because Leanna shows up later on. I'm probably butchering her name, but she comes to this current sitter and it's like, yeah, there's there's that false dragon that still hasn't been dealt with. It's like, yeah, you got to go deal with him. And then you have Elena being like, oh my God, see what's happening? Our current sitter is being sent like halfway across the world to deal with this false dragon. You're going to need a sitter, which this in turn is going to put her in position to be the quote unquote temporary sitter. But then she's going to use that as an opportunity to finally have her sit down with well, not unless it's like the lady that she was talking to is the one like, no, you take the mantle of sitter, and that you are already a little bit more on my side, so I can manipulate you to kind of go and do what I want. Cause like, what is she planning on doing, like with a sit down with with Swan? So that's why I'm wondering if she's trying to spin a certain narrative to help the Reds in the long run. But it's also like she has her allegiances to the kingdom of Andor, so I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to cause chaos in the tower? Not unless you are a dark friend, but it could also just be like, yeah, you have your own machinations. As we found out last episode, she lost the throne of the Emmeline seat to Swan, so there could be a little bit of that at play here. I don't fully know and grasp what her full or like her ultimate goal is, so we'll have to keep an eye on that situation. But other than that, we have Nynaeve and Elaine like investigating. They interrogate two women who are connected to the Black Aja, and it's just like that, you know, separating them, and also, all right, let's talk to one, let's talk to the other, to piece together. They're trying to figure out what Leandrin's goal is. One is like, oh, Leandrin's going to Tyr because that sword that Rand is supposed to be going after, she's trying to get it. And it's like, oh, but you know, only the dragon should be able to get that sword. It's like, well, if that's the case, you don't have anything to worry about. I forgot where the other one said that she's going, but it's like, and that one was like, I look into your eyes, I know a killer when I see one, Nynaeve, so I know you will kill me. Because she's like, I was part of the Greys, and being able to kind of read people was kind of her thing, and I can read you and tell you that this is what's what. But Nynaeve doesn't buy it all. She's like, it's BS. She's like, they're both lying to us about, like, we can't trust either one of them. Cause I'm about to say is like, there are two of you, so you could divide and conquer, but that's just a waste of time. But even Nynaeve's like, no, this is a waste of time, because it's not just about what they told us. It's more so about what they didn't tell us. Because it's like, at no point, they mentioned all this other stuff, but at no point have they referenced anything about the items that were stolen and were taken with Leandrin. So they investigated. This is, I believe, after they went to where Leandrin... Yeah, they first they went to where Leandrin was keeping her son. And it ended up being this interesting conversation between Nynaeve and Elaine, where it's like, oh, you kind of liked her. And she's like, yes. Like, I know she did a bad thing. She was a dark friend, and she was trying to shift me to the shadow side of things. But I do believe on some level she was trying to help me. And I did believe the sincerity of she loved her son. But they found a symbol under the bed, and they ended up looking into it through, like, in the brown Aja wing of the tower. And they started looking through some of the items that were cataloged about what was taken and what wasn't. And one of the items that was taken is very reminiscent. It's an older version, but slightly similar to the brace that the Shan-Chan will use to shackle channelers. You're like, wow, that's real. I'm sorry, but what is Leandrin and them going to do? We'll get to that because we found out that by the end of the episode. But they ended up getting attacked by a gray man. But then, like, Elaine fought back. But when they got in the hallway, the guy was stabbed. And then all of a sudden, I do think it's suspicious that Varian is the only one, and no one else happened to be walking by, but Varian happened to be walking by. I wonder if we're going to find out, is she actually Black Aja, or is she just super, super sus? I mean, you never know, like, with Swan, it's like you never know what the left hand is doing. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, but the left hand also doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So it could be a thing of Elaine and Nynaeve are doing their thing, and it seems like no one else knows what they're up to some extent. Like, Varian and the others have probably been filled in to some extent, but even Swan was like, yo, don't even fully trust them, because she can't, with you know, especially with Min's vision from last episode? Yeah, last episode. You don't know, like, who you can trust, and you got to try and prevent the deaths that are coming, right? That ended up being an interesting conversation between Min and Aleda, because Min's like, right, you can't change anything, but Aleda's kind of like, yes, but the events going up to it, as well as the events preceding said vision, kind of saying like that is in your control to decide what leads up to it and what happens in the aftermath. And it's like you can't just sit on the sidelines and accept things as they are. You got to kind of play your own role. She's like, that's why I knew I'd have some part in the role to play in the whole Andor situation. I didn't fully know what would come before and what fully would come after, but I made a decision to be proactive, and that's when I helped Morghese take over and, you know, win her succession war. So and I'm curious, and I guess that plays a role in why men, it's, you know, choosing to kind of take a little more action. But I also wonder, did Elena kind of do that probably not knowing what the full result would be, but she probably knew Elena knew that men would remove herself from, you know, the spyhood and everything just for the purposes of, I need you distracted by other visions you're going to have, and you'll most likely follow them through. Like, as a fellow seer, she knows how to manipulate you enough, because once again, you are both seers, but your circumstances as seers are different. So I don't know if that was like a calculated plan, knowing that men would kind of go the route you wanted her to, but we'll have to wait to see on that, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, like going back to the variant of it all, she's super suspicious because just a look on her face. Because like Nynaeve's like, "Why are you here?" She's like, "This is the brown Aja wing. Like, you know, why would I be? Why were you guys here and there?" And Elaine's just like, "Oh yeah, like I think it's a lot, you know." And they walk away, and then Nynaeve is like, "We can't trust her," and it's like, "Why?" And she said, "We can't stay here because it's not safe. We're better off leaving the tower." And she's like, "Why?" She's like, Varen never asked which one of us stabbed that thing because she already knew. So you're like, interesting. Because at no point is she like, oh, who? I mean, I guess the argument could be like, well, it's a moot point. But also, like, it makes sense because it's like, why would any of you need to stab it considering you can channel? Like, why would you do something like that? At no point it's like, oh, who dealt the blow or whatever. She never questioned. She didn't ask for too many details. She was just like, oh my God, a gray man, yada, 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 and just kept it pushing. So I can see it, but like I said, it could always be like Varen's meant to seem suspicious. I mean, she could easily be a red herring. I just get the feeling like she probably has her own mission from Suan. Once again, that Nynaeve and Elaine don't know, but that could just be, I don't know. You just, once this whole Black Aja who's a dark friend type of thing, you just don't know who to trust because everybody's mega ultra suspicious. So, but kind of staying in the tower conversation, men trying to make up to Matt, because it's also like, well, you don't realize me kind of like helping you out in the end when it came to the whole Ishmael situation actually screwed me over. I was so close to losing these visions that have kind of haunted me my life. But yeah, you know, Matt does apologize to her later on. It's like, but Min sees a vision of Matt hanging himself. Because I love that she knows about it. Matt's like, wait, you know about it? He's like, yes, you have literally ran your mouth to every novice and Aes Sedai that's willing to listen to you, because he's trying to play up the whole being a hero thing, trying to, you know, get some action, you know, because that's Matt being Matt. But when it's all said and done, though, she sees a vision of him killing himself. You're like, Jesus. And I guess for men, it's kind of a thing of, well, it could be a thing of Matt was hanging himself. Well, it could always be someone else staging it to look like a suicide. There's always that. But I think there's probably a good chance that maybe it's like that's him in the process of dying just because the voices become too much. You also, as we've come across time and time again with men, she even said it last episode, there's no telling how far in the future that is. Maybe it's super close into the future. Maybe it's a couple years away. You never know. But I think that is playing a motivating piece of like, I want to be more active when it comes to my visions. Because she does, I think, like, her and Matt, I think, could get along swimmingly. Once again, whether it is just a platonic friendship or whether there's a romantic angle to it, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, she sees something that she can do something. I think it's also because, like, I kind of feel like I still owe you despite everything, because I did kind of sell you up shit's river with the whole Ishmael of it all, trying to get something out of it myself. So I think there's a little, she feels indebted to it, but I think indebted to Matt in that regards. But I think also she likes Matt. Once again, platonic, romantically, I don't know, but I think that's motivating her to like try and follow him to make sure he doesn't off himself, that she can, it's the thing of like, can any of it be changed? Is everything set in stone? But, you know, once again, your visions aren't fully what you think. There's a lot to be deciphered. They're not so clear cut. So, but yeah, speaking of Matt, he also crossed paths with Elaine's brothers, who, trying to be the white knights when him and Min are talking. He's like, "Well, Min, what did you see?" And he's like, "Whoa, the lady said." It's like, okay, dude. And then later on, when he's talking to Nynaeve, they step in. They're like, "Whoa, the lady says no," and you're just like, "Guys, leave me the hell alone." And they're getting on Matt's case about him using his bow staff. And they're like, "Oh, we could give you some lessons with a sword." But Matt ends up trouncing them with his bow staff because I guess in that moment he was able to tap into like some of the a warrior in particular that would channel through. So he doesn't feel like he fully has it locked in of being able to kind of channel them whenever he wants to, whether he can like fully cycle through them fully, but in this instant it worked out and he was able to embarrass Elaine's brothers. They've been walking around acting like they were hot shit, and it was kind of like they need a nice helping of humble pie. So that worked out. But Matt goes with Nynaeve and Elaine, because I forgot to talk about it too, and this will be a perfect segue into the Leandrin. They found out what Leandrin's up to. She's going back to where her son was born because basically she has like a sigil underneath his bed because it has to be the place he died, and there has to be a matching one in the place he was born because she's trying to get his soul spinning through the wheel a lot faster and bring it back to this world, which obviously is like, anything magic related, messing with trying to resurrect a soul or anything like that is always a massive big no-no. It's a massive no-no, but we'll see how it all shakes out. But either way, that like I said, segueing into Leandrin, she is in the place that they're tracking her down. It's a T place name. I can't remember it off the top of my head. That's the thing. A lot of names and locations are going to go right over my head. I'm sure a lot of people feel like this, at least some people do with Game of Thrones, especially because it's like, well, the in-between seasons, I ended up forgetting a lot. So that's just going to play a massive role in it. But I'm terrible with names and locations, especially like on the more fantastical front. So do cut me some slack. Even if you don't, it's okay. I understand. I'm an idiot. You can make fun of me for it. But either way, Leandrin interrupts a wedding, but it's a wedding of like, was it the grandson or great-grandson? She's like, of my husband. We find out she was a child bride. You're like, oh, Jesus. Because she was like, yeah, I didn't even get like a whole chapel marriage thing. Not chapel, but like I didn't get all this. I was in the dungeon cells when I was 13, expecting my son. You're like, oh my, like expecting to have her child. You're just like, that's rough. And then it's like, oh, that family tradition is continuing because this guy's bride is a child. You're just like, oh, why you have to be disgusting? Oh, you could have broke family tradition and not being a total creepy, terrible piece of shit. But I guess it's like, runs deep in that family. Leandrin killed him, and they killed everyone else in that party because it's like, well, I guess they're all people who participate in that type of stuff. I'm sure for Leandrin, it's like, it's kind of clearing a little bit of the like, because I'd assume she just kind of, and maybe she talked about it in the previous seasons, and I just don't remember, especially last season. Maybe she talked about her past a little. I'm not remembering, but maybe it's just on principle of all these people were co-signing all of this by being here, fellow participants themselves in their respective situation. Either way, her and her Black Aja end up slaughtering everyone except for the child bride, and they just wiped her memories. And for Leandrin, it's like basically keeping all that will either haunt you or it can lead you down the path of revenge. And for her, it's like, you're better off not remembering anything. Because I guess for Leandrin, it's like, I would almost rather have not remembered anything, but there's too much attached with that memory of like, because it's like, yeah, we could take away some of these bad memories, but it's kind of an all or nothing thing. And for her, it's like, I'd rather keep the bad memories because there was good with it, and that good being her son. So it's like she took the bad and the good, but it's like, if you were in a situation where there's nothing good associated with this, why like haunt yourself? Because also I think Leandrin also sees her as like, I don't want you to end up like me. So, but yeah, we ultimately find out what Leandrin's up to, other than trying to resurrect her son. We also find out what the bracelet that's kind of very similar to the Shan Shen's like one for holding Chandler's. The one they're trying to find is like there's a matching pair to it. And this isn't meant for women. It's meant for men channelers. So you're like, okay. And she's like, yeah, we're going after. It's all about being able to do what the Shan Chen were doing to channelers. Not just like it's not like the tower where it's like, oh, we'll steal you. It's like, no, we're going to basically make you into our servant, just like the Shan Chen were doing last season to like Egwene and everything. So, and as well as a few and many others. So they're trying to do the same thing to Rand. Makes sense if you're able to. It kind of folds into like having the Dark One being able to have the dragon under it'd be the same thing. Not unless Leandrin wants to kind of use Rand as a means of completing like whatever spell it is to resurrect her son. Not unless that plays like Rand plays a role in that capacity as well. We'll have to wait to see. So that's fascinating. We had the meeting of the Forsaken. Lanfear is meeting at least with 2 members, even though there's like 2 more. But like, because what's his name? Robin, I think, or Robin. He talks about the fact is he was talking with the other 2, which Lanfear is like, no, it's only supposed to be us 3. But he was like, oh no, you know me, like I like to prattle on to people. So it's like, all right, he's definitely got his machinations up. And we also see he's working with Makiden. So I'm wondering, like, did you even talk to the other 2? Or is it just solely Makiden that you're working with? Not unless those other 2 are already dead because Makiden's already got to them. I don't know. Because Lanfear is like, we need to kind of all work together. Makiden is a coward, but she's smart. And she will go after us, starting with you, home dude, who is the weakest of them all. She'll kill you, work her way through all of us one by one, working her way up to me, who's the strongest. Which mainly the other dude was kind of like, why are you not like top head honcho, and why has not our Dark Lord spoken to you? And she's like, well, he kind of lost his main right hand man in the form of Ishmael, so it's like probably still grieving his death. Who knows if that's true? Who knows if that's Lanfear coping? But home dude tried to start shit with Lanfear, where he's basically like, yeah, you and Ishmael were always so weak when it came to the dragon. Like, you yourself are so in love with Lewis that it's like he could have told you to lay down, and just all he would have to say was rug. To basically, I need you to lay down and be my rug. And just like Lanfear was stepping to him, but Raven's like, whoa, you guys, you always keep doing this. So it's like, this ain't like a new thing. This beef is kind of continued between these 2. So interesting developments. But even home dude, like I said, Robin or Raven, who was talking to Makiden, was like, she's like, do you really think I'd kill you? He's like, oh, I'm pretty sure you'll try. So they've got like an interesting alliance. And we find out that she was listening in. She snuck in with while Leandrin and them are planning. So it's like, I don't think they recognize her as a Forsaken. She just slipped in. They just look at her as like help or something, or maybe that's just like we see Makiden as herself, but maybe they just see her as like a fellow Black Aja or just some person serving them. I have no idea who or what they're seeing in that capacity. Yeah, you're on technically on the same side, but once again, Leandrin's got her own reasons as well, the Black Aja, but like Makiden's got her own machinations in play too. So we'll see where that goes. Speaking of Lanfear and all that, we do circle back to Egwene and them, where we're picking up with like the old, like the wise one, the old lady, and she ends up saying like, oh, I didn't go into your dream, you came into mine. And I'd said like, okay, last episode I kept being like, all right, is that a byproduct of that old lady bringing her in? But I didn't feel like it was. I felt like it was more like an Egwene thing, and it seems like it is. Kind of about to say, I was like, is it a byproduct of Lanfear? But I'm like, why would she even remotely accidentally do that? That's why I was like, not unless it, like I said, Lanfear's constitution and situation kind of like played a certain, like interfered with something that was going on with Egwene, and that mixture led to that. I mean, to be fair, I think it's like the trauma and pain that Egwene was going through triggered it, but they call it dream walking, and she has that ability. So it is interesting that you're being taunted by someone, because like Moraine chalked it up to, hey, those marks on your neck is just because like in a dream what happens to you, very Freddy Krueger rules of what happens to you in a dream can happen to you in real life. But the wise woman's like, no, like whoever is in your dreams, that woman's alive. But it's like, yeah, we know it's Lanfear messing with her. It's like, that's why the wounds are real in the real world, which is also interesting considering Moraine and them know like, well, Lanfear is out and about. So the fact is they're not like piecing that together. But I could also, I mean, like you should be suspicious of that. But I guess it's like you're not thinking that it has anything to do with Lanfear. I mean, she's going out of her way to do that. Like that's why I was like, is that her just stepping into that moment because it's like, oh, I'm gonna let Egwene's dream play out, but I'm gonna, be front row seat for it. But it's like, no, it seems like you're a willing participant. Like you disguise yourself as Rena just to torture her even more, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. So hitting the ultimate torture trifecta. There was this group of people, as one of the Aiel people called them. Like, there's the different tribes of the Aiels, and the one that Moraine and them are with came across some. They called them lost ones that are dead, and it's like these Avienda and her people believe in, like, what was it? To not defend yourself is kind of a slight, but also striking down those who will not defend themselves either is also an even bigger slight. So, but apparently they're saying it's another Aiel tribe that did this, one that they've kind of have issues with. So Egwene was the one kind of mentioning like, oh, we should bury them. So one of the guys stay behind to bury them. And I love that little line between him and Rand, because he's like, all right, when I get there, there's going to be a trial for me. And he's like, I know there's going to be a trial. And the guy's like, you know too much and you know too little. It's like, well, because it's like how no one's willing to tell him, and he's only just finding out about like the true nature of who he was last season, and he's still on that journey to discover that. With I mean, technically you're like, well, he found out a portion of who he is, not the Aiel side of things, but just being the dragon. Then last season more of the Aiel stuff, and we're diving into that even more as he balances that with being Rand from Two Rivers and also being the dragon. So it's just like once again being torn into three different directions of what people wanted to be, whether it's Egwene, Moraine, or Avienda. Three crucial women in his life, down the three different paths of who he could be. And the Rand path is kind of an amalgamation of the other two paths, but it still acts as kind of like this interesting neutral path or lawful path, as I was kind of referencing, I believe, last episode. So then we also had the situation with Lan and Moraine as they were kind of in that like sweat hut of sorts, and it's just like, oh yeah, like they're kind of like, it's just like, oh boy, we're taking this all in, and it's a lot. And the other IO, they're not being too receptive of or at least that's what I'm like, I think they're still classified as IO, but the other people there being like, you people from the wetlands kind of taking baths, and that's how you use up water, especially because water is such a special commodity here, considering like there are warring tribes over control of water here. So when it is all said and done, though, there's this moment between Lan and Moraine when like a lady's looking at them, and it's like, oh, he's like, oh, if that's, take a little time to yourself, even if it's just an hour to be happy. It's like, yo, get you some. Because they had the back and forth of, she's looking at you, and he's like, no, she's looking at you. Turns out she was looking at Lan, but then he notices the tattoo on her back, and it turns out she's from his kingdom, Malkier. She escaped when the blight came, and she's just basically, it kind of sounded like she was saying, and maybe I'm mistaken, but she was basically like, you are the crown prince, and basically as like one of the other survivors, it's kind of up to us, like as long as we are there, as long as it kind of has like a pseudo like king and his chosen person. Now I don't know whether that's kind of like, oh, it could be anyone, and she's not advocating for herself, or because her name's like it was Nindara, I believe her name was something like that, but I'm wondering what she was advocating for herself to kind of play the role of a queen, or was she just being like, no, like you just need to find your queen and rebuild your kingdom? Because it's like, have you forgotten your like duties? Or are you still fighting your father's war? And he's like, I have never forgotten my obligations. So that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. Then we have the whole Two Rivers situation where we dive into, we learned that there's something beautiful about it. I mean, obviously very tragic when you look at all the trees that have grown, but basically Perrin's family situation is, at least for his family, I don't know if that's replicative of anyone else in the in Two Rivers, but basically when they die, they're buried with like the seed this seedling so that like a tree grows in its place, and you see the place is like riddled with them. And obviously the one he visits is his wife, and he buries like the broken ring. And him and Alana have this interesting conversation about, because like Perrin says this sad thing of like he feels both comfort and as well as sadness from look at how much this tree has grown in my absence. Because I'm sure there's layers to that where it's like there's a comfort of well, I've been away, this tree's been growing comfortably, but it's still the thing of my presence would probably have hindered its growth to some extent. So there's kind of the good with the bad. And Alana talks about how her people believe in grinding up like the ashes, taking the ashes of those you've lost and mixing it with clay and putting it on your skin, as we see on her face, and it becomes a thing of you absorb them into your skin until they become a part of you. And I talked about this previously, where it's like the thing of our, Alana's trio was, because it was a trio, they've kind of lost their equilibrium, because she talks about the fact that she's lost a lot of waters over the years, but the fact is this hit even harder, having, Maxim, what's his name, and then Yvonne, and she talks about it like when someone loses their partner, it sucks because that person has to be left to grieve. The other half has to be left to grieve. But what happens when someone that's a part of a three dies? Who's left? Who gets more? Who gets to like get more of that grief when you basically have to kind of share it? And it's not easy with an Aes Sedai, where she basically has to. She's keeping their bond open, and now it's like for Home Dude, it's like I can feel that you don't like miss Yvonne. Like you don't really care, but for her it's like I have to like keep some semblance of like control, because if not I will drown in that sorrow. Because he's all about we should be looking for Leandra not being here in the Two Rivers. Why are we here? So I was like, oh, I thought this had something to do with you pursuing Leandra, but it's like if you were really doing that, you like, I don't know if it's like Alana's own way of running away from her grief too, but I mean, they're both kind of dealing with it in a way. And I wonder, I wonder if it's the only time Alana's ever had a dual waters at the same time, or has it happened before, but it's usually a thing of both waters die, and this is the first time she's had like only one die and the other live. Like it could also be like a thing of this exact situation, she has been through it previously, and that's why she's handling it the way she does. Like she's trying, and to be fair, the Aes Sedai can compartmentalize it like no one else, regardless. Can come off emotionless and insensitive, but it's just kind of like, well, it's just the nature of being an Aes Sedai. It's just about doing what you need to do, So, but yeah, when it comes to the village itself, obviously there's a guy who's kind of running things now. I forgot how it was explained, like what role he plays, but he's kind of like filling in as kind of a pseudo leader for the town, and Perrin wants to turn himself over. Obviously later on it turns out the town is not supportive of that, because he finds out Matt's family was taken to draw him out. So he's like, right, I'll surrender myself, which we cut over to the White Cloaks. And at least the guy who's trying to get revenge for his father's death, it's like, yeah, we're not going to like torture or question the people of the Two Rivers, because they didn't do anything. So there's some symbols of like, right, I'm a good guy, but it also recognizes how they are viewed, because he's looking at Matt's mom, and she's just like, I would let you kill me first before I let you harm them. And for him, it's probably the thing of, that's probably going to come a lot quicker than you expect if Perrin doesn't do what we want. But also, it's just like we're seen as monsters, and especially because this is your personal vendetta you're having. I mean, as the White Cloaks in general doing what they're doing, but you have a vested interest in all of this as well. So it's like putting people, innocent family, through this. Like, despite you being like, oh, the people of Two Rivers have done nothing, you're still using a family as bait and recognizing like, yeah, that's not the greatest thing. But yeah, when the time came, the villagers refused Perrin's attempt to turn himself over, because it's like, right, we look after each other, but also it's like, well, if we get rid of the White Cloaks, we'll still have to deal with the Trollocs, so it's kind of like we'd rather deal with that. So Perrin, you stay here. So, but he does rally the people later on, because some of the people want to get to their farms and stuff, but it's like, no, like 10 or 20, like that won't mean anything against the White Cloaks or the Trollocs, but if we stay here and stand united, because the Trollocs are something to be feared. You can't just like rely on the white cloaks, because once again, it's that point that was brought up last episode. It's you're either in the belly of a lion or a belly of the bear. So either way, Perrin has kind of reunited people, but his mission is still like he's going to save Matt's mom because he made a promise, and he kind of gets close to. I forgot her real name. Is it like Fale? Because she gave the fake name or name that she kind of I guess chose. What was it? Mangdab, I believe. Or Mandarb. I can't remember. But it's like, oh yeah, Lon calls his horse dad. But I thought it was interesting because like her real name's like I said, it's like Fale or whatever, and it's like it means falcon, and she's like, yeah, hunting's in my blood, which is like, oh, a falcon and a wolf. Interesting pairing. So I'm curious. She definitely seems super uber suspicious because you're like, I don't know what your situation is. I'm like, what is that all about? We'll have to wait to see. Yeah, I'm curious to see how Perrin plays out this whole situation with the white cloaks, because she says like, right, you're going to try and hope for the best where no one gets hurt, but you're going to need a plan and some hope. So what is he going to do? We'll have to see, because she was saying like, if you hope to lead, and he's like, I don't. So, oh yeah, also I want to really quickly go back to the land fear of it all, because I just remembered this. She visited Rand in his dreams, and she's like, you brought me here, not me. But basically, she's talking about the weapon in Tyr that she wanted Rand to get that could kill a Forsaken and potentially, well, she saying, like, I wanted you to get that weapon selfishly. And he's like, what do you mean? She's like, if you can get that, and basically there's almost like a sister weapon of sorts, that if you can also get that, it will be possible to kill the Dark One. Because for her, she's like, my oaths to the Dark One can be broken if he's dead. And it's like, for her, it's like, I'll be free to kind of do what I want. And, you know, almost kind of like we can finally be together without all this like Forsaken and Dark One bullshit getting in the way. But Rand's like, no, you know that can't happen. Like, as she's trying to get closer, she's like, right, sorry. And you're like, well, she's further manipulating you, because I'm assuming this has something to do with her plans of whether it's related to Makiden or whether it's just about all the other Forsaken. The whole episode 1 situation between Lon and Moraine of like, yeah, especially Lon being like, yeah, why would she try to point us towards a weapon that could kill the other Forsaken? Yeah, she has beef with them, but eventually Rand could turn that weapon against her. But it's like, well, she wants, because obviously, once again, she has her soft spot for the dragon in general because of previous incarnation Lewis, but also because she has fallen for Rand, but probably still kind of like she sees so much of her old lover in him. But it's also the thing of she feels like maybe she can sway Rand on her side to the point that she doesn't have to even worry about him ever doing that, because she's like, I know I still have your heart to some extent, because I see you in a way that no one else will. Like, you know, whether Egwene will ever accept the darkness in you, I see that in you and I embrace it wholeheartedly. So there is a lot to kind of keep in mind on that front. It's going to be interesting to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.